That's what I'm saying.
Okay, well, what I was gonna say, I've got a software meeting at 2:30, could I leave it? That's fine.
I'm on. Okay, you ready?
Okay.
Are we on? Okay, so today we have Jerry Domby with us, and he is going to talk to us about turning a prospect into a sale. And if you have a cell phone, if you'll make sure that it is turned off and on stun, I appreciate it. And then without further ado, Jerry Domby.
Okay, thank you very much. How's everybody doing today?
Good.
Good. So I'm honored that Sandy asked me to come and talk to everybody. I usually attend these whenever I have time. It's been challenging lately, but I thoroughly enjoy all the knowledge that's shared between the speakers and all the attendees of every class. So I was hoping today would be kind of fun and we can make it that way. I've been in sales for 17 years, so most of my career I've either worked in sales directly selling to customers or managing and or teaching and training. So I guess we can kind of get started. So I think the title that we're talking about today is going to be turning a prospect into a sale. So I really kind of wanted to be interactive and find out what of our audience here, what kind of businesses are you in, and do you understand your sales cycle?
Verizon Wireless.
Verizon Wireless,
Small
okay.
businesses, yeah. I'm just going to use.
And then we have our sales process. So a long time ago, about 15 years ago, my first real sales job, I'll call it, I was taught this system, and I've actually used this throughout the years in different things that I've sold, different companies I've worked for. And the great thing about this is every company uses the same one. Now they might put their spin on it, put their taglines on it, what they call it, but in the end of all ends, it's the same thing, you know, and it's got 5 pieces to it. There's an introduction, there's a build rapport, you ask questions, you make a recommendation, and you close. Now, as this relates to your sales cycle, you know, that's an important part. If your sales cycle is a long one, you may only make a recommendation and build some rapport, ask a few questions in the first part. You're not actually recommending and closing yet because you don't really know. If it's a short sales cycle, you're probably doing all that within an hour process. Okay? Introduction. The important part about that is state who you are, include why you're there, and what you want to accomplish from your appointment or from your interaction with your customer. The next part is the one I think that's most important. It's build rapport. The biggest mistake that most salespeople make that I've seen throughout the years is they like to get to in front of a customer and they start talking about their product right away. That's, you know, that's it. They're talking about the product, what they can do, and a lot of times they overwhelm a customer before they ever get started and find out what they need and why they might need the product that the salesperson has. So the build rapport is very, very important. Today, you probably all would agree that you're in the most competitive market that you're ever going to be with any product you sell. There's just so many avenues that people can buy any product or service these days, whether it be on the internet, you're competing with people next door. You know, that competition is great. So why do people buy from you? And I really do believe that it's because of 2 different things. One, you either have what they need and they can't get it anywhere else, and they have no choice. Although the power company or the water company where you live, or 2, it's because you've set yourself apart from everybody else, and they like you. And that happens a lot. So as far as building rapport, that's one of the most important. I just with a story. I used to work for Wells Fargo before I came to Miracle Year, and I was asked to work in business banking. So I was asked to go to one of our other banks and help some of the bankers with getting new business customers. And I went to a particular bank, and the banker there, he was really good, and customers, he just was having some trouble with a few of them. He said, you know, do you care to go with me? I was like, no, I don't care. You know, where are we going to go first? So the first place he took me was a restaurant. And the owner was very nice. I spent quite a bit of time talking to him, finding out what he did, how he got started, where he came from, you know, the different parts about his business, just really letting him talk about his baby, his business. And after about 30 minutes, we talked a little bit about bank products and things that we could do for him. And then at the end, he kind of decided to give us a try with some different things that we could offer him from the bank. When we left, we went back to the bank and we were talking with the banker and said, well, you know, what was the biggest thing that you took from that? And he said, you spent 30 minutes talking to the customer before you ever mentioned anything about why we were there as far as business-wise goes, the products that we have. And I said, yeah, I sure did. And that was his biggest aha moment, because it's so important to get to know somebody before you start recommending things at them, throwing stuff at them, because you don't really know what they need from the beginning. And so that build rapport, and you know, we talk about things other than just, we're going to ask questions about their business, but you talk about other things too. We talked about people we knew, you know, together. We talked about places he'd been and things that he'd done. So you just relate on any level that you can with the customer. And that's build rapport. Again, most important thing I think you can do. So then you just ask questions. You know, this is one of the big parts too. Always make sure that you try to ask open-ended questions. So your questions should be really conversational. And with those, you can kind of leave the conversation where you want it to go. Okay? I've got in there, make questions conversational. Listen, and once you get pretty good at listening to customers, you can remember a lot of the things they tell you. That's the most important thing. If you can't remember it, take notes. Ask that you can take notes.
For those potential folks that you're dealing with, though, that are those introverts, that you're just having to keep
pulling it
out of them. I mean, have you found a technique that works best when you've got those? Oh,
I'm going to back up. Build rapport first. If you do a really good job at building rapport, it helps those people open up, because you've talked about things that aren't related to the business and things that they're going to have trouble with. That's, you know, I'll probably go back to this 2 or 3 different times just because that's the most important part. Yeah, you're right. If you got to keep pulling stuff out of them, but if you get them comfortable with talking about them, talking about things that they're just comfortable with, their family, or their interests, or things like that, then it's a lot easier when you get to the questions piece. It kind of softens them up. But the biggest thing is it just lets them know that you're a real person. They can kind of relate to you. You're not just about there just trying to sell them something. Because for the longest time, salespeople have negative connotations, you know, because they just push. Well, it's not about that. The sales process should be about finding your client's needs and then having the product to fulfill those needs, or knowing where to send them to get those needs fulfilled. Any other questions about asking questions? Anybody got examples of open-ended questions?
well, I have a feeling though, the industry has a lot to do with it, depending on what industry you're in, like car sales. You know, they're following you around when you're trying to look. So it's when you go on the lot, if you're going there just to kick the tires around, and you really just are in the starting out the process, you really don't want somebody following you around. But here they are there, and then how's that salesman? That's where you have to come into your real skills. When you know you're somebody, they just leave me alone, and
right.
How you keep developing that relationship is a pain.
I'm kind of glad you brought that up about the car sales, because I have a story about that too. I bought a new car, and I'm constantly evaluating salespeople. Just as a salesperson myself, that's kind of what we did. We kind of always gauged the competition, and we'd had trouble with our SUV, and I happened to be driving it that day, and it was having some transmission trouble. So I pulled in the car lot, got out of the car, and said, a salesman approached me and said, "How's it going?" I said, "Not good. Today's not a good day." I said, "I'm having trouble with this car," and we just had it in the shop like the week before and spent like $500 or $600 on it. So I was kind of a little aggravated with it. But anyway, he said, "Okay, because I get it. You know, your car's broken, you know, and you're having trouble with that." And then he just started talking to me. So he just started finding out what I needed. And to your point, you're right, he didn't hound me and follow me around. He started having a conversation with me, talking about my kids, my family, and things that, I kind of knew what he was doing, but he was just asking me questions about myself. He was building rapport. He did a really good job of that. And then he gets to the point of saying, well, do you really want another SUV, or are you looking for something different? I said, well, I'm kind of open. We need something with a lot of room. We have 2 small children, 1 and 3. So it's important to us to have a lot of room and be comfortable to take the car on long trips. At that time, an SUV is what we bought, because we thought that would fulfill our need. Well, he listened, and he walked me over to a car that wasn't an SUV. He said, from everything you told me, I think this would be a car for you to try out. It was a beautiful car. So I took the car out, I drove it, brought it back, and he said, well, what do you think? And I said, I like the car. It's got tons of room. The trunk had as much room as the SUV had in the back. So then you get to the back seat, the car had as much or more room than the SUV had inside. I was like, it fulfills the needs that I told you, so I kind of like the car. I said, let me take it home to my wife and I'll call you back. But anyway, I took it home. I ended up buying the car from him. The reason I did is because he didn't try to push for me from the beginning. He just found out what I needed and he made a recommendation because he listened to what I told him. And he spent time building a lot of rapport. And it's one of the best car buying experiences I've had. Now, I've had a lot of bad ones as well. And those are the ones that I guess kind of give people, salespeople, a bad name. But there are good ones out there, and when they do a good job of just, again, following this process that I'm talking about, is not rocket science. It's what all companies take the best, most successful salespeople, and they find out what they're doing, and that's where this came from.
I think everybody in here is in some type of sales. I mean, chamber, and what do you?
I'm from the YWCA.
From where?
The YWCA.
Okay. Well, I mean, everything's sales today. And again, it goes back to just because the competition for everything that we do in our professional lives, there's so many of us, right? I sell hearing aids now. I work for Miracle Ear. Love the job. It's very rewarding. I get to actually sell things to people that they need, okay? And I haven't done that in a long, long time. I've always sold once, but never needs. These really help people. So to me, that's very rewarding. But just for my office, within a mile, there's 2 other places that you can buy hearing aids in Bristol. So that, I got all kinds of competition. I've got to be good. I've got to be better than everybody else to do well.
So what are your sales techniques? Because the first thing you have to do is sell yourself before you're selling whatever you service or product that you're offering.
Sure.
So what, do you have some techniques that you think are important for that first impression or that selling yourself?
I do. For me, it's just about being real. I'm not a real hard, pushy salesperson. I never have been. But the first thing I do is I just talk to people. That's where everybody misses everything. I just have a conversation. There's nothing special I do. I've been asked that a lot, actually. And there's nothing special I do. When I introduce myself to a prospect or a customer, first I start out, I just talk to them. We just have a conversation about, it could be about something totally unrelated to why they're there or anything. But that's what I feel sets myself apart, because I build that rapport. I connect with them on a level other than what product or service I'm going to sell to them next.
In some situations, where it's a walk-in thing and people are having to wait, but sometimes by the time you get to them, they're already aggravated.
Can be.
Because they've had to wait. So, is there, if you dart around and try to say, I'll be with you, just have a cup of coffee, I'll be right with you. If you dart around and do that too much, you've lost whoever is the here and now.
Mm-hmm.
So, how do you deal with people that are waiting for 30 minutes? For instance, I know this guy has to deal with that a lot. They'll wait for 30 minutes before they can see a sales associate. By then, they're already aggravated because everybody's wants everything done yesterday.
I agree. That's a difficult thing to deal with, because We are in a now society. We want everything now, right? We want service now. If you want the answer to a question, you Google it, right? Because you want it now. You don't want to have to wait on it. And that's hard to overcome anywhere. And it's something that we always deal with. If it's me, I'm going to spend the time I need with the person in front of me. I might say, hey, I'm sorry about your wait to the person waiting in line, but I'm going to give the person in front of me my best effort, right? And when I get the next person that had to wait for 30 minutes, they're going to get my best effort too. And I think if you do that with them, they kind of see that it's not just about, just filtering us through the line. I mean, you've got to be cognizant of time, especially probably your role with wireless sales, but you can still give a good effort and make sure if that person had to wait, make sure you give them as good a treatment as you were giving the person before, so they kind of see that and they don't feel left out, I guess.
Yeah, do you announce, like, do you say something like, I'm sorry you had to wait, but you now have my undivided attention?
I do say things like that.
I can give 2 examples of that school.
Okay.
Like, I have 2 different areas to talk about. Like, if somebody comes in and you're waiting, for example, like I've been a greeter in Bristol before, it's, an hour away or whatever. You have a list, you have a person with a hat on and been there for 10 minutes. As long as you go back and check with them and say, hey, sorry for your wait, you're the next one up as soon as they get free. Just taking the extra 30 seconds to remind them, hey, you are next, and they forgot about you, saves a bunch of people just blowing up. Just like that extra, okay, there's 3 people ahead of you, there's 15-minute wait, that kind of stuff. But going back to what he was saying on his part, like, focus your undivided attention. Like, I was always big when I was a sales rep. People would come in and wait for me. So I would give my 120%, whatever you want to call it, like, you were it, that was it. I would acknowledge the people that wait on me, like, as soon as I get done, you're next. And they were cool to wait because they knew they were going to get my best effort every single time. They were cool to wait with that. It just depends on what contract base and how you set up your business, how it is. Like, if you walk into a cell phone store now, it's usually you have to wait in numbers. A lot of the people I have, they have appointments. Like, when you came in, I knew you was coming. I was free. Like, she comes in, boom, you're done, you're in and out. That's the way I work. But it's different in each industry, so it just depends on how you want to position it.
So some businesses that have high traffic, you're saying that one of the things they do is they have a greeter that manages all the people that are having to
Some
wait.
greeters are better than others, I'll go ahead and say that. I mean, it's not a perfect process depending on who's there. Some people have better skills of shifting people where, but the main goal, like when people come in, we try to, at least check with them every so often, like, hey, we forgot about you, thanks for coming in, just that extra 30 seconds.
It seems like that you've changed that, because I remember years past, it wasn't like that.
You come in, you just stood in line
That's
and looked at
right.
everybody, like, you had a line, you stood and waited.
And I will have to say, the times that I've been there lately, when I walk in, they get your name and everything, and
Yeah.
someone comes back within
Yeah.
5 or 10 minutes and
It's
says,
a lot better than what it used to be.
it really is.
Yeah, I was going to say, companies have gotten smart. They realize that people having to wait, if you just have somebody to talk to them. See, I'm very fortunate. I have an assistant that does my paperwork and things like that for me. So she's able to talk to customers. Even if I'm running over on an appointment, she's able to kind of keep that customer engaged. And every now and then you get somebody that doesn't want to wait anymore. We had a lady the other day, didn't want to wait anymore. And she's like, I've got to go, I've got something else to do. So she remade an appointment. She kind of was a little bit rude whenever she left. But when she came back and she saw the time I took with her and professionalism I showed her, she apologized probably 5 or 6 times about how she had behaved before. Because it really wasn't us that aggravated her. It was something else going on that day, And so you kind of just have to, people are people, but everybody, like I said, they expect the now. We've gotten so used to now. I want to go back to the 50s.
Well, Jerry, you came from the banking industry, and the banking industry seems to have changed because they're so focused in getting their employees to upsell or add additional components, and that's another area too that has to be very challenging as a salesperson. Not only am I trying to get that product out, but now I have this, have management encourage me to add blank, blank, blank to that purchase.
Yeah, and there's a fine line when it comes to that. I actually had somebody mention about banking to me today, and I said, well, it's funny, I used to work there, and we were having a conversation. He's just like, I've told them every time I go in there that I don't want to do online banking, and I don't want to use the ATM. But he gets asked that every time he goes into the bank.
Get frustrated with that too.
There's part of, you have to know your customer, and I think some companies make a mistake by asking their people to do that over and over. at some point you kind of have to figure out, not everybody's going to use every service you have, you know? I mean, people are just, that's why you've got a bunch of them, because people are going to pick and choose the ones they want and the ones they're comfortable with, and that's what they're going to use. So, yeah, banking's tricky. I don't miss it. I'll just say that just because of that. You're constantly pressured to basically give them everything. Well, they don't really need everything. Even though they'll teach you to do the same sales system that I'm talking about, you know, which is find out what they really need and recommend that to them, they still ask you to sell everything to them. So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but that's, you know, that's just that industry. They're very competitive because you can walk anywhere to go to the bank. I think it's important for them. The successful bankers that you see are the ones that build relationships very well with their customers and really set themselves apart, because they don't really worry about the bank at that point. They're coming to see that person. And probably in your business too. You know, you probably have a lot of repeat customers that come in. They don't want to see anybody else in there. They want to talk to you because you took the time with them at the beginning. And that's the best thing you can do is build relationships.
I'm like that.
Me too.
Yeah.
When I get somebody I'm comfortable with and they did a good job, I'm giving them my business. You know, I've been in sales for a long time, so if you do a good job, you get my business. You don't, I'm probably going to, not going to be nice to you, but I'm not going to be an easy customer to deal with as far as, you know, if you're not doing things the right way. So ask questions, most important part, but the biggest important part about asking questions is listening to the answers. I mean, that's the important thing, right? Getting the answers, because that's what you're going to use when we go on through the sales process. Next step is recommend. So this is where you have a chance to really set yourself apart from all the other salespeople that contact. This was written for business owners, but that contact business owners or clients on a day-to-day basis. Remember, most importantly, you should be the expert. If you don't feel like the expert, go study till you're the expert in whatever you do, because that's very important. And again, this was actually written for banking that I forgot about, but don't get ahead of yourself and try to get all the business at once. You know, depending on what you do, pick one or two things that are real important to them, show them what you can do there, and then move on to gain other business. Now, your recommended part, the thing I love to say is, based on what you told me, whenever we were listening to all the questions I was asking you, based on what you told me, here's what I recommend, and why. That's the easy part. If you do a good job asking questions and you listen, the recommend part's easy. And at some point, it should come down the funnel, and it should make sense to the customer. You're leading them down a path of you've asked them what their need is, you fulfilled a need, and now you're recommending a product or a service based on what they told you. And then after that, your close is easy. You know, it should close itself. Any good salesperson, if you do a good job with the first 3 or 4 parts, the close is just, it makes sense. It really just comes down to if the customer can buy at that time or not. I get a lot of those. I don't know if anybody knows what hearing aid prices are, but they're pretty expensive. So that's really what it comes down to with me. The only people I have not buy is just if they can't afford it at that time. And sometimes we can finance and do things that they can, but that's the biggest part of that one. And I'll tell you a story around that. I had a very nice lady come in, and we were talking, and she had been a hearing aid wearer for about 10 years. And she actually has some of our older hearing aids. And we talked a little bit about it. We do tests every year to test hearing and make sure there's no changes. And she had a significant change, and she needed something to help her with understanding a little bit better with higher frequency response. So did the test, we talked to her about it. I asked her, you know, what are the things that you change about what you have now? And she said, well, they're really uncomfortable. She said they just don't sound really good. And there was one other thing that I'm trying to remember, but those are the 2 biggest things that were important. They're really uncomfortable, and
We only sell at one service, so
Right.
having multiple services in the building helps target those people who would normally not come to a fitness place, because that's not what they're there for.
And you know, the other thing that I've noticed is, and I had a business for 30 years, but you know, the thing that I've noticed is it's still the old grocery store model. whatever you're selling, whether it's yourself, your service, or a product, it's still the old grocery store model of you have to have a loss leader. You have to have that one thing that people are willing to, you know, that you're willing to lose money on, to get people in there so that you can talk to them about things that you can make money on.
Right. No, it's just the convenience store model. I don't know if anybody knows the convenience store model, but most convenience stores don't make anything off their gas. They just use it strictly as a reason to get people to stop. They make more money typically off a 20-ounce bottle of Coke than they do off, let's say, 10 gallons of gas.
Right.
And most people don't realize that, but they do. And that's where they make all their money, on their sodas and their snacks and their, you know, the different things that they carry. So gas is just a reason to get people to stop. And you're right. The more services you can put together, and that's why I said partner with other people in your community that have kind of, not necessarily similar services, but, you know, that kind of just different businesses that you get along with, because you'll get referrals, you'll get cross referrals, you'll get people you can send to them, you'll get people they send to you. It helps. But yeah, if you have a lot of, in one building, if you have a lot of different services there, that helps too, because people come in for one thing, they don't really know that anything. It's the reason that Walmart puts one thing on one corner and one thing on another corner. They know you need both of, right? So you got to work through their entire store to get to the other one. Makes sense, because you'll pick up a bunch of things along the way that you didn't think about.
Forget what you went in for.
Oh yeah, I know. Everybody's done that, you know. I've went in and bought things and walked out and said, I didn't even buy what I went in for. I mean, everybody's done that, because you get in there and it's just stuff. There's all kinds of stuff there. And so anything you can do to get people in the door is great. I always said, I just need an opportunity to talk to somebody. That's it. Past that, we'll find out if they need what I have, and if they do, I have an opportunity.
Okay. So, our next class,
Thank you all for your time with your cards.
yes, thank you all for viewing, everybody that's at home or at their office viewing because they are in a retail sales store and can't come out. Thank you all for coming. Our next class is going to be is a collaboration between Virginia Highlands Small Business Incubator, Washington County Chamber of Commerce, Virginia Department of Small Business and Supplier Diversity, and Southwest Virginia Alliance for Manufacturing. And they are providing lunch, and the guest speaker is Lil Dupree, and the conversation that she's going to be having is managing 5 generations in the workplace. And I know we've all had some little seminar about the Y generation and the baby boomers and the X generation and how they can all work together. This promises to be a pretty exciting and interactive class. So thank you for coming, and keep us in mind for next week, Wednesday at 12 here at Virginia Highlands Small Business.
Nope, 2 weeks. We're not
2
next week.
weeks. Oh, I'm sorry, I am wrong. November the 18th. I don't read well. I'm one of those people that doesn't read directions. November the 18th. So thank you so much.